Okay, what is up, y'all? My name is Christian Wagner, and this is my first video in a hopefully long-running series of videos about creativity, philosophy, and mindset. So today I want to address something that I posted on Facebook. I will just edit in what I posted later because I don't have it in front of my face, but when I'm driving I like to think and talk aloud, so I might as well record it, right? I got a friend of mine who responded to this, and they began the response with false. And then I'm just going to read it because I'm going to edit in later what he said, because I don't have it in front of my face. But the thing that I want to get at here is that he's not wrong. But a keen observer will notice he didn't rebut my point, he just paraphrased it. He might not realize it, but that is what he did, because I kind of left out a lot of context here. Because that my status didn't come from nowhere. It's something that I've actually been wrestling with for a while, and then I came across a term that really kind of really summed up what I've been feeling and what I've been noticing, and it's this word pseudo-intellectualism. Okay, now before I start intimating that I am some arbiter of great truth, I'm just a person just like anyone else. I want to qualify myself here and why I'm feel qualified, I guess, to comment on this. I spent the better part of a decade as a scientific and technical analyst, studying ballistic missiles and satellite systems. So I do have background in problem solving that, a lot of people may traditionally call smart, I guess. But I don't like to think of myself in those terms. And I don't really think anybody else should either, because it creates problems in your thinking, and here's what I mean. My handy dandy commonplace books with all my notes that my lady love got me as a gift one time. But anyways, I don't think you can say it. I think it was in shadow. It is nighttime. But all right, I just want to give a quick rundown of the points that I want to make that are common characteristics of people who engage in this kind of like fake ass pseudo-intellectualism. You see this shit a lot. Bullshit word salad, complete disinterest in others' opinions and analyses of the topic at hand. And then there's the Dunning-Kruger effect that you see a whole lot, where people are very confident in the truthfulness and objectivity of their positions, whereas people who have a actual background that could qualify them to have a real position on something, to have a lot of self-doubt because they know how much they don't know. And then of course there's just egotism along with that. Ego is the enemy, as Ryan Holiday is very fond of saying in his book. It's a very good book, you should go read it. And then also there's a confusion that being an objectively, I guess, intelligent person is equal to having a lot of ideological talking points that are closely held instead of a process. And I'm also going to discuss some of my own failings because I am human, and that is why I like to say that I'm not a smart person, because I am human and just as susceptible to this stuff as anyone else. So without further ado, there's this person I know who I was talking to him one time, right? And we got into a little bit of an argument. I mean, we're friends, but friends get in arguments. And he started to do his best lawyer impression. And I didn't even call it out because I was just like, Because I know what happens in that situation when you do. They're just like, oh, you can't understand the words I'm saying. That's because you're a dumb person. You know, without understanding that we are all kind of trapped within our own perspectives, and therefore we don't have context for everything. We only understand so much about the world because our ability to learn is inherently limited by the human condition. So, got a piece of hair in my mouth. I'm sure I'm making y'all dizzy with this camera, and I apologize for that. So, disinterest in others' opinions. This is something that I think this might be my biggest sticking point. And why I've been kind of wrestling with this is because, like, you know, going back to the Dunning-Kruger thing that I mentioned earlier, you know, self-doubt is something I wrestle with a lot. And I think a lot of that just kind of has to do with how for the first, you know, half of my life, I just kind of like let people walk all over me a little bit, and it's just very non-confrontational. Like, I mean, maybe that's not something I should admit about myself. You know, maybe I'd like to be a lot more, you know, aggressive about my points. But the fact is like, I kind of just let people, you know, walk all over me. So, and it's something that I was like, you know, I have to think about this, because for a long time I would get very like, ooh, you know, it would like, I not always very good at responding to people's points in person, because I mean, I'm sure you've felt it when encountering a position that is against your own, you know, a disagreement, and you start to feel that rush of adrenaline that courses through your veins, and before you know it, you've caught a case of the stupids, and you're no longer able to think straight, and all these imagined conversations that you've had in your head just go out the window, because you're just like, well, you start kind of having a fight against yourself to be like, well, fuck you, you know. And I'm the kind of I need time to process and really chew on an idea before I start to, you know, formulate an opinion about it. And in the meantime, that just, you know, that just leaves you open for people to come in and be like, well, that's because you must be stupid, because you can't, you know, you can't like come up with an instant rebuttal to my thing. And I think that's a cult of like wit. I think people place a really high premium on snappy, clever lines that are great for bumper stickers. You know, never mind the context that it leaves out. But I digress. Hopefully I did not just go on a rambling word salad rant right there. I will know when I edit this thing. So there's self-doubt. But then there's also the element of egotism, right? So when it comes to personal egos and the Dunning-Kruger effect, ego versus confidence are very different things, right? So ego is a Nigerian prince that is offering you a fortune if you would just send $1,000. He is a liar. You can't trust him. He will fuck you over. Confidence is earned. And I don't think it's necessarily true that that in order to be a rational person that you have to have lots of self-doubt. But you have to earn your confidence. You can't just think that you're the shit and that's going to work. Because history is littered with the bodies of the egotistical that history has forgotten because history abhors a loser. So why do I mention that in terms of pseudo-intellectualism? Because, like, what does it mean to be a rational, I guess, intellectual person proper? And this is something that anybody is capable of, by the way. Anybody can be a rational person, person. Maybe it comes easier for some than others, but if you really want to be that, you can be that. I guess it takes curiosity. It takes a certain willingness to fight your primal instinct to dig down and onto your, held positions. And this is something that I struggle with. I have very strongly held beliefs about, morality and ethics and certainly politics. But I do try and be careful to check myself and to explore other ideas, because, and here, let me check my notes here. Just assuming the truthfulness of everything that you believe at all times will lead you to have a lack of skeptical rigor about your own positions. It's very easy to think that someone's wrong and then go down the rabbit hole of like looking for reasons why they mean to disprove everything that they have. But when was the last time you did that for your own positions? It's not easy. It's not an easy thing to do, especially if it's something that you hold sacred. And, to be human is to be emotional, and you cannot divorce your own humanity from that. Because then you wouldn't be able to make any decisions. Kyle Milligan, on his copywriting channel, described this study, not a study, I would have to go look up exactly what he was talking about, but I'm just going to give you the gist of like this scenario here. There was this gentleman who suffered damage to the emotional center of his brain. His faculties of logic were completely intact, 100%. Could do math, no problem. And yet, a decision, trying to make a decision as simple as, which cheeseburger to eat is something that became nigh impossible. So, to think that to assume that you are such a logical person who only makes decisions based on a logical basis is false. You wouldn't be able to function. And I mean, this is something that I've fallen prey to, analysis paralysis. Because ultimately, we don't make decisions based on logic. We can't. We wouldn't be able to function. There's only 24 hours in a day. You don't have time to review thousands and thousands and thousands of messages in your brain and in the media and in books to make those decisions. You have to, as humans, we have to act on imperfect information, and that's why we're so good at picking up patterns. But the problem is in those patterns, when we rely on those patterns too much without checking them, they become a minefield. They become traps. And if we're not careful, those cognitive patterns can start to not be aligned with objective reality. And before you know it, you're just completely detached, and you just, you get it. Rationality is something that is an ongoing project, because you always have to fight against entropy in your own, in your own thinking. But anyways, next point is, did I already mention ideological talking points? Yes. So my own failings. Who the hell am I to judge? Who am I to cast stones in this glass house? Yeah, I'm human. I've certainly been, I've certainly reposted funny memes that were related to my own ideological sticking points that I reshared without necessarily digging into their truthfulness, because I just kind of take it as a matter of fact that I am right and others are wrong. But but then does that make me any better? Probably not. So what do I try and do about it? I always do make it a point to very consciously ask, is this really the way it is? And anytime I feel that taste of rage-induced bile that comes from being disagreed with, I always try and take that as a signal to be like, all right, let's take a step back here, because that's a very strong emotion. And as I mentioned, emotions can clash with rationality, and can lead us to making not so good decisions. But Christian, you just said that emotion can, humans are emotion that we should make. Listen, there's a happy medium that you have to find. You can't be 100% lizard brain. You can't be 100% Einstein brain either. You have to you have to find a happy medium. Anyways, so I guess that's my approach. I wish I could give a more solid framework that you could take away, and I think maybe I will try to create some kind of some easy and dirty analytical decision-making framework that won't lock you up in 1,000 years of analysis paralysis that I fucking deal with day in and day out. Because anxiety is great. But, so what are my key takeaways about this video? Why do I make this video? Because I think it's a curse, man, that our society is just kind of filled with this pseudo-intellectual trash. And by the way, it's not all just this doesn't all come from ideological morons. Because no matter how much knowledge you collect, no matter how much you know, you are not safe from the disease of being a fucking moron. You can master all kinds of interdisciplinary domains and still be an idiot. You can have all of the certifications, you can have the pedigree and still be a moron. There have been Nobel Prize winners who were fucking morons, their original contributions notwithstanding. But just because you have domain mastery in one area doesn't mean you're safe from bad thinking in others. And that's something that a lot of people need to wrestle with. It's this whole myth of genius, where we put people on pedestals and we just start taking everything they say for granted, even when it's really, really wrong. But this is something that is not easy to learn, and I will give you that. It is difficult. It is not intuitive. Let me see if there's anything else that I can add to this. Yes. Where does this come from? Why do I think people engage in this? If you were really interested in, being a rational, intellectual person and having an objective view of the world, it doesn't take galaxy brain intelligence. I don't think... me personally, I think I have to work twice as hard to get half as far half the time. I think my brother is more naturally inclined to do things with me. But the difference between me and a lot of people is that I'm a very curious person, and that's really all I have going for me. Is I like to think is that I'm just a curious person. I don't have answers, but I do have tools to solve problems that have worked for me time and time again. And that is the thing. That has nothing to do with me, That I don't take credit for that. These are tools that I did not create. These are things that I picked up along the way. When I was in high school, I got D's and F's consistently because I couldn't fucking sit still, and for a long time I thought I was just stupid. But it wasn't that. It's just I lacked the context to understand how important knowledge was, and that's the other thing about knowledge. People engorge themselves on knowledge, but it doesn't. If you're not using it in a way that is meaningful, it's a waste of time. You're not doing anything. You're just collecting trivia. Yeah, you might as well just go home and play video games at that point because you're not. That's not being truly curious. So where do I think this comes from? I think I don't have studies in front of my face. I'm just kind of talking through my assessment of this cultural phenomenon, and I think what it comes down to is it's a desire to be seen as smart. It's going to the coffee shop with a really thick old book and sitting down there as the sun streams in through the window and looking up at the cute girl and hoping she sees you. It's a society of that. It's a society of wanting to be seen as a really smart person. And I think a lot of that maybe has something to do with insecurity. And I get that. I get that. Like, you know, if you're the, maybe if you grew up with people telling you that you're an idiot your whole life, you're gonna want to, you will want to be seen as a smart person, and not necessarily want to be challenged just as a, you know, as a matter of trauma response, you know. Oops. I am not a good cinematographer tonight. I apologize if I have made you dizzy. What should you do? Anyone from any perspective, be it political, scientific, philosophical, can fall prey to pseudo-intellectualism, and likewise could also, you know, possess very strong faculties of analysis. Now, that being said, that's not to say that all assertions are equally true or untrue. It's just to say that they're more likely to be true or untrue if you use the right framework to arrive to your conclusions. Stop cherry picking in your research to validate your own preconceived notions. Instead of trying to prove your preconceived notions, try to disprove them instead. And the nuggets of information that you find extremely difficult to disprove, those might be the truth. So that's all I got for y'all. All right. Con todo amor, mis cariños. Te vemos al rato. Also, to quote every other YouTuber on earth, smash that like button, subscribe, and hit the little bell. Because I am going to try and make this a regular thing from now on, because I need to get the hell on social media to shamelessly self-promote. Love y'all. Bye.